I grew up thinking that there was only one thing I wanted to do for a living, and that was to make music. You have to decide what you value in life and business and family. Define success, define a work week. How could I grow my income every year and work fewer hours? I make content for a living. I've been doing it for 15 years. Give that content away for free, and that sort of builds that trust that then allows you to sell anything you got on the back end later. If I weren't giving, I don't think I'd have as much of the success I have today at all.
This is your real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Graham Cochran. He's a TEDx and keynote speaker, seven-figure entrepreneur, best-selling author, speaks at 80,000 plus people a month on his top-ranked podcast, The Graham Cochran Show, all about how to create more money, margin, and meaning. 14 years online coaching and content expert or experience as well. And just, I love how Graham is going to highlight, which I know you know this about me, but a big proponent for faith, family before business, right? And those things are even more important. I want to be more famous in the living room or the dining room than I am in the boardroom. And I feel like Graham just highlights that very well today as he talks about, how to have more money, right? But margin and meaning in your life. He's going to walk through a number of things that he has done to be so efficient in his business to be able to scale a number of businesses with just a few hours of a week of his time while still highlighting the most important things. Graham, welcome to the show. Honored to have you on. I feel like we have a ton in common. I know the listeners are going to just love your story, your faith, your family focus, and all these things that's helped you, I would imagine, through some hard times that we're going to hear about as well. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for being flexible today. I got a little tied up at the auto repair shop this morning. They couldn't find my keys to my own car. I'm like, guys, I really need the keys so I can get to the office and jump on this show with Whitney. So I'm here. I made it, and you were patient, so thank you.
Well, glad you made it. Glad they found your keys. That's
I am too. I am too.
That would be bad. That would be bad. Well, Graham, I know you are, you're the author of a couple of great books. One that's coming out, I think, later this year. I think that's ready to, or being sold, pre-selling right now. TEDx keynote speaker, and amongst a number of things that I already mentioned in the intro. But I'm just grateful to have you on. But I want us to just jump right in. I know you had a different aspiration early on, and that didn't happen. And I bet a lot of listeners can relate to that. But then there was some trials there that I think you and your wife had to work through, and then before you experienced growth, right? I'd love to dive in on that a little bit. Maybe how you worked through kind of the crushing of that aspiration, and to being able to shift to something else that was successful and not just laying down. Right. I guess, back up there a little bit, give us some details, and let's work through that a little bit, because I know that's going to help a ton of listeners that are listening as well.
I grew up thinking that there was only one thing I wanted to do for a living, and that was to make music. I was a singer. I was a songwriter. I just wanted to pretty much make music videos on MTV, which just dates me a little bit because I don't think MTV does music anymore. It's not music television. I don't know what it is. But I wanted to make music videos. I wanted to tour. I wanted to be in a rock band. And I was one of those guys that actually really tried to make it happen. All my music friends kind of faded off and decided to become, lawyers and doctors and investment bankers and get real jobs that actually paid money. And I really pursued the music dream hard in college, Whitney. I was writing songs. We hired producers and session players out of Nashville to make a record, to kind of shop it around to labels. And my goal was to get a record deal signed by the time I graduated college. I was engaged to my now wife, then fiance, Shay, at the time. And so I knew I was going to get married. So the whole deal was, I got to get this deal, get some advance money. That will be my job. And then we can sort of see where things go. And I didn't know how big I could become or whatever, but I just wanted to make a living doing music. That was it. When I was getting the deals, kind of the offers that I was putting out there, when I was getting the offers back, I was getting a lot of no's, not interested, nothing new here that we want to hear. Or the best I was getting offered were these development deals, which basically means, we like you, we'll sign you, but we don't like you enough to give you money. So we'll sort of see what you do. And then if you start to sell some albums on your own, we'll put money behind you. So I was like, guys, that's not a deal I can take. I actually need to make money. So I'm getting married. So I had to let that dream die. It was a really frustrating, painful period in my life because it felt like, well, I was banking on this. Like there's no other skills I really have. So I kind of floated for 4 years. I was married, just got regular job. I'm going to provide for my wife. I'm going to be a good husband. And I did the quote unquote right thing. But if you've ever felt like you're a square peg in a round hole, or you're not in the career path or in the vocation or the calling that you're meant to have, like, how deflating it is every single day. Every day is a reminder. This is not what I meant to do. But I'm a high, like, do the right thing kind of guy. So I just figured, forget what I want to do, forget my dreams. I'll just do what I need to do. And that I floated for 4 years until the Great Recession, which you're in real estate, so you remember 2008 and 2009 were interesting times. And so I moved to Tampa, Florida with my wife to help plant a church. I was going to be the worship leader.
Large income doing that, right?
Oh yeah, this was a zero pay. This one, it was all volunteer, so it was as large as it gets. I thought, well, maybe the church will take off and be able to hire me, but the church didn't take off anytime soon, and I lost the job that I got to get us down there. So now I'm unemployed. I'm 26. I just bought a house with my wife. We just had our first baby. I'm in a state I don't really know anybody but the 5 to 6 people we moved down with, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, the music dream died 4 years ago, and now I can't even just hold a steady job, which is not really my fault, but it's just a slap in the face is what it felt like, because I didn't really have a stable career. And we were on food stamps for 18 months. They call it SNAP, but government assistance to pay for groceries. It was just the most embarrassing, lowest, confusing time of my life, because I felt like, how did I get here? I've been working since I was 14 years old. How am I taking handouts? And then B, what am I going to do? Like, the one thing I'm good at, music, it didn't pan out. So that was probably our lowest point. And that's when I felt like God gave me an idea to start a business that I knew nothing about, that didn't really even exist that much back in 2009, which is in a way what I've been doing for 15 years in the content creation, podcasting, course creation, building online community space.
A number of follow-up questions. I want to show you something that my worship leader sent out, or I'm on the worship team as well at our church. I play drums, but our piano player, one of them, responded this morning to this, and he had this this meme here, and it says, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a musician." And the father says, "Son, you can't do both." That was just this morning, so I thought you would appreciate
painful.
that. But that's
painful.
Yeah, especially for you. But man, that had to. It's such a big, like, letdown, right? When this, just major passion that you've pursued, but speak to, and we've talked about this often on the show, because we've had a number of people on in real estate and different businesses that have either collapsed, or there's hard times, right? Before they've come back. But what I would love for you to speak to is how did you and your bride stay unified during that time, right? And come back out together, on the other side.
Marriage, outside of parenting, marriage is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Like, I thought marriage was hard, and then you have kids, you're like, wow, parenting's hard. But marriage is really, really hard, because humans are hard, right? And if you have team members or employees or investors, or if anyone you're dealing with, customers, it's hard because you can't control people. So if my wife weren't supportive, I say all that today, if she weren't supportive, I don't know if I would have started the business, because I was scared out of my mind. Like, I had never done anything entrepreneurial. I didn't know a single entrepreneur. Never crossed my mind that I would start a business or even wanted to. I actually think back then I was judgmental of entrepreneurs, that they were risk takers, they were unwise, they were just shooting for the stars, and they're not thinking about, like, just safety and protection of your family. And I just wanted a steady paycheck, and I kept losing this quote unquote steady. It wasn't steady. That steady paycheck was gone. And I'm so glad I haven't had a steady paycheck in 15 years, because that model, I had to reframe my thinking, but I just didn't know any better. I didn't know anyone in my world that could show me that path. Right. So I think if it were up to me, God was nudging me to start a business, I might have tried it for a minute, and then I probably would have quit because it was just too unpredictable. My wife was really supportive, and she was like, well, let's try it. So she at least was behind it. And what I thought I was trying, Whitney, was a freelance business, because I had an audio recording background. So I was producing albums for bands. So I was at least selling that service. And the reason I started a blog and a YouTube channel as like lead generation, like I'll create some content and then that'll drive people to hear about what I'm doing and then hire me. And that's what we thought I was starting. What ended up happening was that people found the YouTube videos. This is late 2009, early 2010. I don't know how people found the videos. I mean, but they started to share the videos and people liked the videos. And so when we saw that there was momentum, like people, like the way I was describing and teaching the art of recording music, it made sense for people. So it'd be like if someone's trying to explain syndicated real estate to somebody and it's like all over their heads and it just doesn't make any sense. But then you come on, Whitney, and you're teaching real estate in a way that like just makes sense to someone who's not super familiar with it. And they go, oh, I like this guy because he makes it simple for me. I was becoming that guy in the music recording space. And so these musicians were drawn to my content and they're like, can you make more videos? Can you make more videos? And I'm like, sure, because I'm unemployed and I got plenty of time on my hands, but this doesn't make me any money. And so I remember telling my wife, Shay, I was like, people are loving this content, but I don't know how to, I'm not making any money off of it. And she saw it too. So she was supportive enough to see that there was something there. And she was scared out of her mind, but was willing enough to say, well, let's hang in there a little bit longer and see if there's a way you can monetize this. So we were unified because she was open and she trusted God and she trusted me that I wasn't just trying to like drag them through nothing. I was at least trying to give something a shot. And I don't know if we gave ourselves a specific time limit, like we'll give it 6 months or a year. I can't remember. But I know she was like, I'm willing to see what we can do. So I put my head down every day, 9 to 5. I'd sit in my office and I would try to find a way to monetize what was working. And that was early on as like ads and sponsored posts and stuff. But then eventually realized that having your own products was the way to do it. And so I sell digital products, courses, communities, coaching, things like that. But it was a trial and error. But yeah, I think we were unified because we had a healthy marriage, even though we were only married for 4 years at that point, and we supported each other. And I was willing to submit, like, you know, relationship is all about mutual submission. So I was willing to submit to her if she was like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. I think you should get a job. If that's really what she wanted, I would have done it. But she was like, hey, let's give it a shot. I was like, okay. And so there was enough of a shot that we gave it to see the next step of momentum that was worth taking another faith step and another faith step. And as anything in business or investing, like it doesn't come all at once. You have to be willing to plant seeds. And now I start to see some fruit, plant some more seeds. And it is always slower than you like and smaller than you like at the beginning, but those seeds do reap a harvest in the end.
Yeah, I love the push that she gave you. That, I mean, that she was just on board, right? And not really overwhelmed just by the fear, right? You know, of the future. And so love that you all took the risk and you had to take that risk together, right? Be willing to walk that path together. It's incredible. Even your willingness to say, you know what, if she feels like this is too big a risk, I'm good with going and getting a job, you know, that probably gave her more comfort too. You know, that, okay, you know, we can go do something else if this doesn't work out. And so, you know, now let's fast forward a little bit. You've built, you know, multiple 7-figure businesses, and I think you pride yourself on just the minimal weekly hours, right? And being that efficient. I'd love to jump into some strategies that you have that help you to do that, and maybe elaborate. You know, you got numerous businesses. Kind of what all do you have going on? And let's talk about some strategies that you use to just achieve this level of efficiency, because that's something I definitely struggle with. Numerous businesses and a lot of things happening, right? Spinning all the plates all the time and numerous team members. And I get questions about that all the time, you know, as well. So how do you be that efficient? You know, what are some strategies that have worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different for every type of business. I happen to be in the digital product space, which is a powerful leverage tool because you can sell multiple copies of it to millions of people instantly without being involved in the transaction or the fulfillment. And the margins are virtually infinite. So it's a great business to be in that regard. So that helps, but it's not the only thing that's necessary. I think for me, I mean, if I'm looking correctly in the back of your shelf, I see the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And you know, funny stories. I read that book in 2007 when it first came out, and I was working a corporate job, and I literally went to Barnes and Noble on my lunch break to look for a book to get me out of my grind. And I saw this book and I was like, well, that's perfect. I would love a 4-Hour Workweek. I thought it was a bunch of garbage. I thought it was a fairy tale. So I returned the book to Barnes and Noble. I was like, that's impossible. And the funny thing later is then 2 years later, when I lost my job and I was starting a business and now I'm in Florida and it's the Great Recession, is revised edition or updated edition that you have on your shelf came out, and I went back and rebought it. and read it and had a whole different perspective because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know what was possible. And I knew that he was onto something. So I reread that book once a year. And I look at that book, whether you love him or all of what he believes in or not. I think the first two sections of the book, definition and elimination, are the most powerful. Like he really gets you to question preconceived notions, which is a big part of my new book, Rebel, is find yourself by not following the crowd. You have to decide what you value in life and business and family. And the crowd really isn't going to be able to give you that. They can give you what the crowd values, but it's not really working very well for the crowd. So you really have to figure out what you value and define success, define a work week. Why do we work 40 hours? Because the Ford Motor Company and the U.S. government about 100 years ago decided that that was better than 50 hours or whatever they were, 60 hours. I mean, it's just all made up. Everything's made up. So why 40? Why can't we work 20 hours a week and make twice as much? I just love the way he challenged some of those notions. And so between reading his book once a year, I kind of made it a weird challenge to I just would ask myself, how could I grow my income every year and work fewer hours? And I don't really care how, and I don't care how much it grows or how fewer hours I drop, but I always wanted those two metrics to change. I wanted to make more each year and work less than I did the year before. And so every January, I would just reassess everything. And he does it beautifully in that book. He looks at 80-20 is a big thing for Tim Ferriss. Richard Koch wrote about this. A lot of people have written about it, but the Pareto's principle, I really take that to the nth degree. And I'm pretty ruthless with my business. So every year, usually I'll look at everything in my business, every task I'm doing, every product I'm selling, even a team member. I just recently stripped my team way down. I mean, it's a small team, but it was 6 of us and it's just down to 2 of us now. I'll reassess everything and be like, prove to me, task, product, team member, that you deserve to stay in the business. And it's sort of a metaphorical thing, but I have to justify everything I'm doing. And just because I've been doing it doesn't mean I should keep doing it. And I have to filter everything. So I love his filtering process of look at every task and see if it can be eliminated outright without losing much, if any, revenue, which is a lot of what you can actually eliminate a lot. I don't post on social media hardly at all. I don't spend a lot of time on a bunch of these platforms. I used to post content 3 times a week. I've dropped it down to 2, then down to 1 just to test and see, does leads and traffic dry up? Does income fluctuate? And for me, it didn't change at all. So I'm like, well, why post 3 times a week when I can get the same result for 1 piece of content a week? That saves me time. So I'll eliminate stuff first. Whatever I can eliminate, I will automate. Is there a piece of tool, or now with the AI, there's so many more tools that can do the job instead of an employee. So if I can eliminate it or automate it, and I still need it in the business, but it doesn't have to be my voice or my face or my specific skill set, then I can delegate it to somebody else. But even those 3 gets things off of your plate. So I'm just constantly refining and reassessing, and sort of, this is violent, but gun to head, do I need this task? Do I need to be doing this anymore? Just because I've done it for 5 years doesn't mean I need to keep doing it. And it's always been an experiment. And the only way you can figure it out is if you can cut it and see if anything falls apart, or if most things don't fall apart. And as long as it's not too messy, I'm okay with a little bit of mess if it means I can cut my work hours back and income stays the same. And a lot of times I found the more I cut out of my schedule, the more mental space I have to really show up powerfully in the areas that really move the needle for my business. And that's how I've been able to just increase, going from, I was working 32 hours a week and making $2,000 a month. Now the main business I run, this personal brand, takes me less than 5 hours a week. It did 2 million last year. Not all there at once, but it's just this slowly questioning everything every single time I get a chance.
Love that. You even said gun to head. Do I have to be doing this? Making that kind of decision. And I think even that thought process would keep you from lingering as well. Postponing this decision for weeks. No, there's a gun to your head. Decide right now. Let's move forward. Eliminate, automate, and delegate. You mentioned in the automate piece, maybe some tools. Are there some specific tools that I know, in your business, there'd be some that's very specific, but anything that's more universal that anybody could take advantage of that you found?
Yeah, it's interesting. These days, if you have a lot of inquiries or people that are curious about your products or services or what you do, AI chatbots are really sort of replacing the need for some of that like low level customer service, you could have these tools like embedded on any person's website. And so when they come to your site, even if they're interested in sort of real estate syndicated opportunities, they could just start chatting with the AI tool that can read all of your stuff and answer like really deep questions to know if they're a good fit for certain things and who they should even talk to. And we'll read this article. And so you can save a lot of back and forth emails, back and forth phone calls. For even your customer service person. I'm not even saying like replace a person in your team. Replace some of the stuff they're spending 80% of their time doing, those low level questions that they keep answering, with an AI chatbot, and then allow them to really negotiate, like setting up important meetings and getting deals done and like facilitating the money making side of things. So I find that like 80% of the questions I would get on Instagram or in an email are the same questions that obviously I used to answer, and then my customer service person would answer, but an AI chatbot can answer it for them way better than I can. AI, I'm in the content space, so AI can actually like watch all of my YouTube videos and listen to all of my podcasts and look at all of my products and digest the information better than I can and answer their questions about my own content better than I can about, does Graham have any, like, what would he say about this? They could tell you what Graham would say about X, Y, and Z, and watch this video if you want more information and read this article. And so those types of tools, I think, speed up some of the low-level work that's really bogging us down. Between that and then just not, it's not really a tool, but most people are wildly inefficient with the way they go about doing their tasks. And I really am a fan of batching, and Tim Ferriss is as well. You really lose time and mental space when you shift from things. So I will batch tasks. I will batch days. I will spend one day, like in author mode, I'm writing my book today. That's all I'm going to do is just stay in that mental space. Tomorrow, maybe I'll be filming content and thinking about creating content. And then the next 2 days, maybe I'm coaching clients or coaching in my community. And so I try to keep even tasks to certain days, so mentally I can do a lot in less time, because I'm not mentally switching between I'm on a call and now I'm writing a book and now I'm doing back-end admin stuff or I'm paying taxes. Like, I don't want to do all those things in the same day, because the mental shift, there's drag, and I will lose time and focus. So a lot of it can just be batching your tasks, not being in email all the time. I only check email once a day, if that. So I can just bang it out really quickly. And it's things like that that seem small, but they do add up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I love the batching as well. It helps me as well. It helps my team also to know, or especially my assistant, to like know to how to think about my calendar also.
Yep.
So major help for sure. You know, let's talk about your as far as I know, you've become obviously really good at branding and marketing and the digital platforms, and how you've done that so well. You know, maybe give some tips as far as somebody that's starting their brand new, but obviously their goal listening, if they're starting their own business, they're networking to passive investors, they're trying to get in front of them, build credibility and add value to them. Maybe just some thoughts behind, I don't know, that you would have right off the bat, maybe how you would do that, or any tips.
Yeah, I think we're in an interesting age where people are looking for authorities. They're looking for voices that they can trust to educate them in every single category. So real estate is a great example. One of my friends is Brandon Turner. He used to be in Bigger Pockets, the podcast, and a big real estate guy. And you know, he's a good example of just someone that comes to mind of someone who's like, well, he's got books, and but even Open Door Capital, like he's trying to raise money for deals. He's getting in front of potential investors simply by showing up and being a helpful voice about real estate, like educating. So people will follow him, whether it's on Instagram or a podcast, just to learn about real estate and how I can change my family tree by real estate. And so the more I listen to Brandon, let's say I'd start to trust Brandon. And then all of a sudden, after a few months of listening to his podcast or watching his stuff on Instagram, he mentions like you can do some passive investing with his company. And he's got this deal. They're buying these apartments. You want to get in on it? And you're like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. I trust him because I've been listening to him. And his deal might be no better than your deal, Whitney, or anybody else's deal. But if I've been listening to him, I'm going to probably do business with him or buy his products or whatever it might be. It applies to any industry. We're looking for people that we feel are generous in giving away information, who seem to want to help and are willing to go first, because the business model and showing up online is not about asking for money. It's not about selling or pitching. It's really about giving. It really is about giving. And so there's something I talk about in my first book, How to Get Paid for What You Know. It's called the value circle. And it's very simple. It's like a flywheel, like Jim Collins, sort of a flywheel approach, but it starts with giving information or answers for free to people. And then if they're liking that, you give them even more for free, like, hey, download this free masterclass or this guide or this workbook or this real estate investor checklist or whatever. Another free thing that I'm giving them now in exchange for their email address, so that I can follow up with them by email. And then I can give them more valuable information and follow up with an email sequence that's all automated, that teaches and maybe points them to some more resources. And now they've gotten 3 things from me. They found a piece of content online that they enjoyed. Maybe they enjoyed this episode, let's say. Maybe they download a workshop of mine and they enjoyed that, and that was free. And then I followed up with some helpful emails that were free. Then on the 4th moment of interaction, if I offer a course that I have that they could buy, or a community that they could join, or my new book's coming out, or I'm doing a mastermind retreat here in Tampa, they might be interested in buying it, actually, because I've given them 3 things, if not more, before I ever asked for a sale. And so that model of giving first, valuable information, whatever you know, just sort of teach it for free, give it for free, coach for free online, and then invite people to book a call with you, or invite people to join your email list to give some more, helpful information out. And then eventually you can mention your services or products, whatever it is. The model is the same. You give first to build trust, and free content is the fastest way to build trust if it's really, really valuable. And then once you built that trust, then you can invite them deeper, the people that want to get to know your stuff better. And then when you position your products or services, it's still an offer. They have to decide whether they can afford it or want it, or it's the right time. But there at least is that trust factor there. And you can go from unknown. I was an unknown person in my spare bedroom, talking about recording and talking about music and telling them what equipment to buy and how to get started. And then eventually I became a trusted voice, because they learned from me for free for weeks, months, years sometimes, so that the moment they had a chance to buy something from me, it was a no-brainer. They almost felt like they were returning to me all the value I'd given them over the years. And I hear that all the time, Whitney, like, hey, I felt so bad. I've watched your stuff for years and I finally bought something. And they view it as a tip. It's the funniest thing, but you do have to go first and give first. And that means either committing to a podcast, a YouTube channel, or posting online on Instagram or somewhere consistently, but thinking about who do you want to post for, what's the avatar, and what problem do you want to solve for them. Don't do generic, general, all over the place. Just pick a person and a problem you want to solve, and then give that content away for free. And that sort of builds that trust that then allows you to sell anything you got on the back end later.
I love that. That's ultimately exactly what we did. Starting the podcast, it allowed us to grow really quickly, really fast. Yeah, I like a lot of the stuff Brandon's doing as well. They've partnered with us on some deals, Open Door. Almost that entire team has been on the show at one time or another as well. I do love that, the amount of value that Brandon's a great example, right? That he's trying to put out all the time, right? And that attracts people to him. For the sake of time, I want to ask you though, you mentioned a minute ago, maybe you mentioned mentors briefly. I can't remember if I heard it in a different podcast you were on, or one of your own, or now, but speak to how that transition happened, and how you gained this education, right? So, you mentioned that you weren't surrounded by anybody during those hard times that were kind of out there doing it or ahead of you. But I would imagine that's changed to now, right? You've probably scaled up maybe the mentorships or the masterminds that you're in. It's something I've tried to do a number of times, right? Is keep leveling up, right? How have you done that? And how have you found those groups that you're willing to invest that time in?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think for me, I wish I had found mentorship sooner. I pretty much built my business on my own, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know anybody else. And I didn't even know it was a model that I was building the business under. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to provide. So first 4 years of my business, I didn't have a single coach. I didn't have a core. I didn't have any training. I just was making it up as I went. And so I say that the Holy Spirit was my coach. I feel like he was leading me and prompting me, like, try this, do this. And it seemed crazy that it even worked. And I was at a point probably 4 years in where I was doing multiple 6 figures a year. And I was just like, I can't even believe this is happening. This is the wildest thing. I get to stay home. I get to be with my family. I get to do music and talk about music for a living. So my dream came back around. I say I got into the music industry through a back door.
That's the kindness of the Lord.
It is absolutely. He's way more creative than I am. So it was probably 4 years in that I first got mentorship through a course. I bought an online course from somebody who was doing online business, and I was like, I can see the way he's doing it. It's very similar to what I'm doing, but he's doing it really, really well. And he finally launched a course on sort of the model. And it was my first quote unquote formal education on the business model I've been running for 4 years. And so that was, I knew like 90% of what he taught in the course, but there was that 10% I didn't know was so helpful. Because like, thank you. Now I understand something else that's happening behind the scenes that I can't see in other people's businesses. And so it was just through an asynchronous video course, but that helped me scale up even more. And then I was able to start to hire some coaches once I had some money to like work with me directly. Like, hey, can I ask you questions? How would you handle the specific situation? And so since then I've always had coaches, and I usually will hire for specific things, whether it's someone in my industry or a mindset coach or something related to my finances, or getting into communities and masterminds, which you pointed out to. So I'm actually with Brandon. I met Brandon in a mastermind that we're both in right now for Christian entrepreneurs called the Wellspring. And that's been huge because I wanted to join something where once I hit, 7 figures a year, I was the biggest person in all the rooms I was in. Not that I can't learn stuff from other people. I feel like I can learn from everybody. I usually assume I don't know enough when I meet somebody because I know I can learn something. But I found that I wasn't being challenged. And so I found there was I was like, I need to get in a bigger room. And so this group is, 7, 8, 9 figure entrepreneurs. And so I'm one of the smallest businesses in the group revenue wise, but it's less about the revenue. It's more about if you get a group of people that are 7, 8, 9 figure entrepreneurs, the way they think, what they talk about, very different. So I wanted to breathe like different air. I wanted to be around people that had just like crazy ideas that didn't seem crazy to them, to sort of change my thinking. And so that's, bigger thinking has helped me stretch my thinking, what's possible. And also helped me find creative solutions to problems that I feel like are a real problem. And they're like, that's not a problem. You could solve that with, I know a guy, or you could do this. And I never would have thought about that. So it's that speed of solution. And then growth mindset is just unlocked to another level, just being in a room with other people. And they're not in the same business space that I'm in. Like most people are doing something totally different, but they think different. So that's been huge for me. And I tell people, you need community, even if it's just one other person, even if you have one other like buddy who's building his or her business like you, and you can mastermind together. Can we jump on a call once a week or every other week and bounce ideas off each other, bring solutions or challenges to each other? You need the mastermind principle that Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich, which was really, you've got multiple minds and they're powerful by themselves, but you put multiple minds in a room, and he says it's like it creates an almost third mind in the room. It's like, it's not just 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = like 11. And there's an energy there when you bounce ideas. And I think that could be just you and one other person. I do this with my wife. We mastermind together. She has her own business, but we bounce ideas off each other. But being in a room with other people that you feel safe with, that will challenge you, that dream big, that are positive, not negative, it's amazing what that'll do for you, let alone just the connections you'll make. It's worth paying to be in the room a lot of times. Not everybody in the room is worth connecting with, but there's usually one person or two people that I feel like God will bring to open up the door to the next step for you if you're willing to step into the room. So yeah, I'm a huge fan. It's money well spent because it's people money at the end of the day. It's more than knowledge. It's just being around the right people.
Yeah, love your outlook there, and just the willingness to spend some money on that. I feel like a lot of people, that's their big hesitation in the beginning. It's like, well, I'm not going to spend that much, that many thousands of dollars. I remember my first mentor was $12,500. And at the time, my wife and I didn't know where it was going to come from. We were like, I don't know, this is such a big expense. And we were starting another adoption process. So we were expecting another massive expense there, and we just didn't have the money then. But that was the best $12,500 I've ever spent. And now, we spend more on masterminds or mentoring than I used to make, in a year.
Yeah.
And it's well worth it, right? I mean, it's a change of mindset, and the value there that you see. It's almost the change of mindset you were talking about from reading the 4-Hour Workweek the first time to this next time, right?
Yeah.
Before we have to move to a few final questions, Graham, speak to how you're balance your, say, the life and business so well, putting first things first, right? I love just majoring on the majors, right? Our faith, our family, and not letting the boardroom getting placed at the living room, right? Or the dining room type of thoughts. But another thing I know you're passionate about is not succumbing to the hustle culture, right? Mentality. I feel like almost feel like those are connected, in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lie out there that you need to work really hard, really fast all the time. It's like the clock is ticking, and I don't know what clock people are succumbing to. I think it's a fear of missing out. It's a fear in my space, the online space. I see YouTubers come to me privately. People who have huge followings on YouTube come to me privately, and they're stressed out of their minds because they're like, because I've blown up or I had a thing go viral, now is the time to make money because everyone's paying attention to me, and they feel stressed out of their mind. So they're working around the clock because there's this fear of my moment in the sun is going to pass. And I think that's probably to a degree what a lot of people feel, no matter what industry you're in, is like, I got to go, 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 go. I think a couple of things. I think hustle is just laziness in disguise. I think if you're hustling, it's because you don't know what you should be doing. So you're just doing all the things all the time as a cover up for lack of spending the time. The real work is stopping and identifying what tasks, what products, what services, what people, what things actually drive revenue in my business, and what is just the 80% that feels productive but doesn't really move the needle much. So that takes more work to stop and figure out what matters. And then you can confidently do a lot less than 99% of the rest of the people in your industry and still make more money than them. Why? Because you're not, like, most things just aren't meaningful. I think in America, at least, people don't want to believe it. People like to work hard, and I think that's good. I think hard work is good, but blind hard work is foolish, because then if you're complaining about lack of family time or lack of time to exercise or travel or do the things you want to do, it's most of the time, I think it's your own fault because you haven't done the harder work, which I believe is just as important, although it's mental work of deciding what matters in my business. So do that work first. And for me, I figured that out early on. I knew, okay, content creation, coaching my high-end clients, and building out an ecosystem that can automatically scale people into the right, offers without my involvement. That's worth putting time into now. And every video, every podcast episode I do is like another virtual employee going out into the world that will serve me 24/7, never gets sick, never has maternity leave, never quits, doesn't ask for a paycheck. And so I figured I'm going to leverage these tools now so that I could reap the rewards later. And so that's worked out for my family. So I don't need to work a lot in my business. So that helps. But at the end of the day, even if you free up a bunch of your time, you still got to make the important things the important things. I could still sit here and fiddle with stuff all day long. There's a million people that want me to do stuff. There's a million things that I quote unquote should be doing that I never get around to do. So I look at my work week as like, well, you have to block in the things that are most important first. And that means, when am I not working? So you have to literally have in your calendar, when are you not working, before you look at your actual work week. And for me, that's Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Fridays are date day with my wife. Saturday and Sundays are with family. And then also evenings, all evenings, I'm not working. And then mornings, I don't work until a certain amount of time because I want to be able to take my kids to school and have breakfast with them. Like, I block out when I'm not working. And then I just block out vacation. I block out, okay, whenever the kids are out of school, I'm usually out. Summers, I really condense my work weeks down so that I can spend more time with them. So you have to put those things first. And then I say, okay, well, what time is left to do the work that pays the money in? And that's really Parkinson's law, which is the idea that work will expand to fill whatever time you give it to complete it. Work is always expanding. That's the idea of Parkinson's law. So if that's true, and I found it to be true anytime, if you ever had to write a term paper and you have a week to write it, it takes you a week to write it. If you have 24 hours to write it, it takes you 24 hours to write it. Like, you somehow find a way to get it done. So that's a good example of Parkinson's law is, look, okay, if I want to put family time and all these other things in church and working out and sleep and time to whatever, and I only have 20 hours left to actually be in the office, then that's all I'm going to give it. And I'm going to find a way to reach my income goals and serve my clients within those 20 hours. And that's when your brain can get creative. And that's when you get focused. And that's when you start to question, well, do I really need to do all these things? Could I do this a little bit faster? Could I outsource this? Could we just eliminate this altogether? So it's just a decision of priorities. And so most people just do it backwards. They look at their work first and whatever time is left. It's the same with investing. Like, I'll pay all my bills and whatever money's left in my budget, I'll invest. It's the same with giving. People say, I'd love to give or tithe, but I just don't have any money left over. It's like, no, you've got it completely backwards. You become a giver the moment you decide to be. You become an investor the moment you decide to be. You invest, you give, and then whatever's left, you spend. So it's the same with your work time.
What are the most important metrics that you track, Graham? It could be personally or professionally.
On a professional level, I track email opt-ins. So how many new leads am I getting who are joining my email list? On the personal side of things, I don't really track a lot outside of we have like overall rules, like family dinner. We've like subconsciously decided, or like, unofficially decided that we are going to have family dinner 4 nights or more out of the week. So it's always going to be more than not. For me, the most important metric is that I'm at home at the dinner table with my family without technology every night I possibly can. And so I try to do that every night, but I know that some nights it doesn't happen. That's the one metric that matters is if you have a family, even if you're just married, just the two of you, if you can be at the dinner table together every night or most nights out of the week, everything else works. Like everything else starts to fall together because that's where you have an opportunity to reconnect. That's the opportunity to like argue with each other, the opportunity to like teach your kids. It's an opportunity to like share your successes or your failures. It's an opportunity for me to apologize to my wife in front of my kids. It's an opportunity for us to talk about our faith. It's an opportunity for us to just talk about what's happening in our country. Like the other night, we watched the part of the abysmal presidential debate. I was apologizing to my 15 and 12-year-old daughters of like, your life, you have not seen a quality presidential candidate, no offense, no matter which side of the aisle you lean on, in your entire life yet. And I'm sorry for this pathetic display of what we have here. But we got to talk about that over dinner, the next day. So I think the dinner table is the most important metric in terms of like, if I fight for that in my personal life, everything else will work out with my family. And so it's like that. And then church is a non-negotiable. I don't know if that's a metric, but like we're always in church every Sunday. And then for me personally, I'm always up in my Bible every morning. It would be a rare morning if I'm not. Spend time with my journal, with my Bible, in prayer. It's the most important meeting of the day is meeting with the creator of the universe who knows everything. I feel like I would like to pay attention to what he might have to say.
Yeah, I love the metrics that you laid out. I could not agree with you more. And I feel like we value all the same things. We haven't been tracking the dinner table dinners, but I feel like that it's ultra important to us. And I've tried to even change my schedule more recently where I have more breakfasts with the family as well. So I love that, the interactions there with them. But I find too, I still have to be very purposeful with those conversations or it can get pretty crazy with a bunch of kids, right?
How many kids do you have and what are their ages?
4, 9 months to 11 years old.
Yeah. So you got 4 of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anything I say just is going to be doubly as hard for you. So I totally get that. More chaos. But yeah, but that's the beautiful thing, right? With parenting is like, it's almost impossible to get that right. So it's a great analogy even to business. Is like, what are the things like the waterfall dominoes? Like if I get these big things in place, it'll take care of a lot of other things. And for us, it's those touch points of the mornings before school, even if it's chaos, even if the kids don't want to talk to us, and dinner table. And if we can fight for those 2 things, it keeps us connected. And if we stay connected, all the other opportunities for discipleship and just connection and friendship or pain or whatever will come out of that. So it's easy to find just a couple things that matter because it's really hard to win at everything when you got 4 little kids in the house.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I did notice that you and your wife did a podcast, something about the dinner table. But anyway, he has a podcast called Family Goals. I know they've just launched. And so I would highly recommend you going over there and listening to it. Because I mean, it's great to have somebody that's thinking about those things. And sometimes I find it's hard to just get like the ideas of, oh yeah, we should be doing that at the dinner table. That's a great idea, or I just somebody, we've had tons of church family just speak into us that are way ahead of us, right? They're mentors in that way, in a big way in our life. And there's things about parenting that like, if you haven't seen somebody do it, sometimes it's hard to just think of those things, right? And so anyway, I love that you all are doing that and putting those things out there as a couple and how to do that well. Last question, how do you like to give back?
Oh man, I think my whole life is about giving. God told me very specifically, I mean, as a Christian, I've always been a tither. I feel like giving 10% has been like a no-brainer. You see it in the Old Testament and you see Jesus reinforce it, that tithing is a good thing. But I always start there as like a baseline. And I feel like God spoke to me in 2011, when I was starting my business and I was in my second full year, so I only had 1 year of data. And I was like, Lord, I don't know how much I'm going to make this year. And it's probably going to grow, but I want to tithe in faith. I want to give faithfully every month. I don't want to wait and see what I'm going to make. So I want to, how do I do that? What should I give? And it was the first time I asked God, what should I give? Like, how much should I give this year? And he gave me a number. It came to me like very clearly. I was like, oh, wow. And that started a process of me committing to asking him how much to give and trying to increase our standard of giving each year, not just our standard of living. And so it's been a bit of a game where like he'll give me these crazy numbers, and I'm like, I don't even make that much. Like I don't know how that's, And so that's been fun because it's unlocked in us a faith to give, because we've seen God just like the moment we step out in faith and give, like he does crazy creative things to like fill up the income where I'm like, oh, this isn't even hard for him. And then just the amount of good we can do. I love to give directly to our church. Of course, we love to give to Compassion International. There's a few ministries here locally in Tampa that we give to that work with homeless. But I also love to just give to people. We've been able to like buy people cars that don't have AC in their cars that are breaking down. We've been able to pay off people's student loans. We've been able to pay for people's adoptions. Stuff like that is so fun. And so for me, I look at my business as a vehicle to create wealth. Like God has given me the ability to create wealth. And if I believe in Genesis 12, then we're blessed to be a blessing like Abraham was. So, okay, then the reason God gave me the ability to create wealth is to bless other people. So we're always on the hunt for ways to bless people. So giving back for me is just being a conduit of what God's put in my pocket to give back out to other people. And that's the most fun we've ever had with giving is and on a financial level, we do that. But then I feel like my whole business is built around the idea of giving. I make content for a living. I've been doing it for 15 years. 95% of the content I make, nobody pays me for. It just goes out into the world for free. It's good enough that I could charge for it. That's sort of like an internal standard I have for myself. Like someone could watch this, do it, make money, or get the result they want, and they didn't have to pay for it. So I feel like the business model only works. I give first, and then I feel like God's blessed me in the back end where I have plenty of customers or other creative ways that I get paid on the back end. And so, yeah, if I'm not giving, I'm missing the point of why God created me. And if I weren't giving, I don't think I'd have as much of the success I have today at all.
Yeah, I agree completely. I love your desire to be a great steward, right? Good steward with what the Lord's blessed you all with. Graham, I'm grateful for the conversation. I love your just the faith component, the family focus. In addition to doing business well, so you can do those things well, right? Also, so grateful for just your willingness to share. Tell the listeners though how they can get in touch with you, how they can learn more about your books. I know your other book's coming out, I think September, right? But it's on pre-sale now. How can they find those things and learn more about you?
Yeah, everything's at grahamcochran.com. My newest book is called Rebel, Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd. And it's not just a business book, it's a whole life book. Comes out September 3rd, but you can pre-order it now at therebelbook.com or any retailer, wherever you want, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. But if you go to therebelbook.com, pre-order the book, bring your receipt there. I've got $300 worth of bonuses to give you, including the Rebel Journal, a masterclass video of me and John Gordon. I did an entire hour teaching you the book, video training. There's a private community where I'm inside coaching there, and a 30-day Rebel challenge of sort of accountability emails that drip out. So all those bonuses you will only get if you go to therebelbook.com. So pre-order it. It's probably the thing I'm most excited about right now, because it's helping people live their authentic life in their families, in their finances, in their work, in the way they manage their time. And I think it's going to help a ton of people.
Awesome. Thank you so much.